You'll take the both of us tonight. Billionaire twins told their black maid, leaving her shaking. McKenna's fingers froze on the edge of the polished marble table. The twins stood across from her in their glass-walled penthouse, New York City burning in lights behind them like 1,000 watching eyes. You'll take the both of us tonight, Aiden Mercer repeated, voice low but steady. No backing out now. Beside him, his brother Cole didn't smile. He just watched her, dark suit, sharp, jaw tight, as if he already knew what she'd say. McKenna's heart slammed so hard she could hear it in her ears. Both of us. Tonight. The city was silent on the other side of the glass, but inside her chest, storm sirens wailed. Hi, viewers. Kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. She'd come to this country to clean floors and send money home. She never thought the richest men in the building would say something like that to the maid. Her throat went dry. You can't be serious, she whispered. Aiden's gaze softened. We're dead serious. Cole stepped closer, sliding a thin folder across the table toward her. Sign, he said quietly, and everything changes. McKenna looked down at the folder, at her own name printed in cold black ink in a place it didn't belong. Her hand shook so hard she had to tuck it under the table. How did a maid end up here? How did any of this happen? She glanced up at both brothers. Two men who could destroy her with a phone call, standing there like they needed her more than she needed them. The pen sat beside the folder, waiting. Black ink, white paper, a decision that felt too big for her hands. I don't understand, she said, voice barely holding steady. What is this? Everything, Aiden said. Or nothing. Depends on what you choose. Cole's eyes never left her face. You think we're the powerful ones in this room, he said, but right now, McKenna, you hold more power than we've ever had. Her pulse thundered in her throat. She wanted to laugh. She wanted to cry. She wanted to grab that folder and run until her legs gave out. But she didn't move, because somewhere deep in her chest, beneath the fear and confusion, a voice whispered that maybe this moment wasn't random. Maybe it was the reason she'd survived every humiliation, every sleepless night, every dollar sent home instead of spent on herself. Maybe this was the point. Read it, Cole said, nodding at the folder. Then decide. McKenna's fingers trembled as she reached for the folder. The paper felt expensive, thick, real. She opened it slowly, eyes scanning the first line, then the second. Then her whole world tilted sideways. This can't be real, she breathed. Aiden leaned forward, hands flat on the table. It's real. Our mother made sure of that. Your mother? McKenna's voice cracked. She barely spoke to me. She watched you, Cole said. Every day, every choice. She saw something in you we didn't see, until it was too late. McKenna's vision blurred. She blinked hard, forcing herself to focus on the words in front of her. Legal terms, her name, a decision that would change everything. Why me? She whispered. Because you're the only one who can't be bought, Aiden said simply. And in a world like ours, that makes you dangerous. Cole's jaw tightened. Or it makes you exactly what we need. The silence stretched between them, heavy and electric. McKenna could feel the weight of the city pressing against the glass, could feel the weight of her mother's prayers across the miles, could feel the weight of a choice she never asked for. You'll take the both of us tonight, Cole repeated, softer this time. Not as your bosses, as your partners. Or you walk away and pretend this never happened. McKenna stared at the pen. One signature. One moment. One choice that would either save her or destroy her. But to understand how a girl who scrubbed floors ended up holding the fate of billionaires in her hands, you have to go back. Back to where it all started. Back to the day she walked through those doors and thought she was just applying for a job. She had no idea she was walking into a war. How did a maid end up here? Rewind 12 months. 12 months earlier, Makina stood on a sidewalk in Atlanta with a suitcase in one hand and a dream dying in the other. The hospital bill sat folded in her pocket. $14,000. The number didn't feel real. It felt like a knife pressed against her throat, slow and cold. Mama's blood pressure had spiked again. The ambulance. The ICU. The doctor with tired eyes who said the words that shattered everything. She needs medication. Long term, it's not cheap. Makina had nodded like she understood. Like she had $14,000 just sitting around. Like nursing school wasn't about to slip through her fingers because her family needed her more than her dreams did. She'd cried in the hospital bathroom. Quietly. The kind of crying you do when you can't afford to fall apart because too many people are counting on you to stay standing. Her little brother was 17. Smart kid. Too smart for the streets, but the streets didn't care. He'd gotten caught with the wrong crowd. Court fines, probation fees. Another bill she couldn't ignore. Dreams didn't wait for girls like her. Debt did. So when her aunt called from New York talking about a job with a rich family, good pay, room included, Makina didn't even hesitate. She packed that same suitcase, kissed Mama's forehead, and told her brother to stay out of trouble. "I'll send money," she'd promised. "Every month. I'll take care of us." Mama had grabbed her hand, eyes wet. "Baby, don't lose yourself trying to save us." But what choice did she have? The Greyhound bus smelled like old coffee and regret. 40 hours from Atlanta to New York. She sat by the window and watched America roll past like a movie she wasn't part of. Small towns, gas stations, people with lives that didn't feel like hers. She gave up her dream so her family could survive. How many people do you walk past every day who've done the same? Drop a heart if you see them. When the bus finally pulled into Port Authority, Makina stepped off with stiff legs and a heart that felt too heavy for her chest. The city swallowed her whole. Noise, crowds, everyone moving fast like they knew exactly where they belonged. She didn't. Her aunt had given her an address. Mercer Tower. Penthouse interview. "Don't mess this up, Makina. These people are serious rich, not like us." She caught the subway, got off at the wrong stop twice, finally found the building and just stood there, neck craning up. The tower didn't just touch the sky, it claimed it. Glass and steel, cold and perfect, like it was built by people who didn't know what struggle tasted like. Makina pulled her cheap coat tighter. She checked her reflection in the glass doors. Brown skin. Tired eyes. Hands that had scrubbed too many floors and washed too many dishes. "You got this," she whispered to herself. "One interview. That's it." But even as she said it, she felt small. Like the building was looking down at her, deciding if she was worth letting in. The automatic doors opened. She stepped inside. The lobby hit her like a slap. Marble floors so shiny she could see her reflection. Golden elevators. A front desk that looked like it cost more than her mama's entire house. The security guard barely looked up. "Name?" "Makina Njoroge. I'm here for the penthouse," he cut in, tapping his screen. "Mrs. Alvarez already cleared you. Elevator 3, all the way up." She walked to elevator 3, legs shaking. The doors were tall, mirrored. She saw herself again, a girl who didn't belong. The elevator climbed, fast. Her stomach dropped. She watched the numbers rise. 10, 20, 40, 60. She thought about Mama, about her brother, about the nursing scrubs she'd never wear. She thought about the life she was supposed to have and the life she got instead. The elevator slowed. Makina took a breath. The doors opened, and she stepped into a world she'd never escape. The penthouse didn't feel like a home. It felt like a museum where people weren't supposed to touch anything. Warm light poured through floor-to-ceiling windows. The city spread out below like a glittering ocean. The air smelled expensive. Clean. Like money had a scent. And this was it. McKenna stood frozen just inside the door, afraid to step further. Afraid her cheap shoes would leave marks on floors that probably cost more than her life. Her aunt's warning echoed in her head. These people are rich, McKenna. Not Instagram rich. Real rich. They don't live like us. They don't think like us. Keep your head down, do your work, don't get involved. She'd said it 3 times on the phone, like she knew McKenna might forget. Like she knew how easy it was to get swallowed whole by a world that wasn't yours. McKenna? She turned. An older woman stood in the hallway, navy dress perfectly pressed, tablet in hand. Her face was calm but sharp, the kind of face that missed nothing. Yes, ma'am. I'm Mrs. Alvarez, house manager. Come in. McKenna followed her deeper into the penthouse, footsteps too loud on the polished wood. Every step felt like trespassing. Ground rules, Mrs. Alvarez said without looking back. The twins are private. No photos, no posting online, no bringing friends over. You keep the apartment clean, stick to your schedule, and we won't have problems. Understood? Yes, ma'am. They're not home right now, which is good. Less pressure. Her voice softened just a little. You'll be working most closely with me. Cleaning, laundry, basic meals when the chef is off. You live in. Food and room included. Live in. McKenna had heard that part on the phone, but hearing it again made it real. This place would be home, even if it didn't feel like it, even if every corner screamed that she didn't belong. Mrs. Alvarez led her down a hallway past a private gym and a room full of books that looked too expensive to touch. McKenna wanted to ask questions, wanted to know what kind of people lived like this, but she kept her mouth shut. She was here to work, not to wonder. Wait here, Mrs. Alvarez said, disappearing into a side room. McKenna stood alone in the huge living room. The windows wrapped around the entire space. The city glowed below, lights flickering like stars that forgot they were supposed to stay in the sky. She thought about Mama back in Atlanta, thought about her brother, thought about the $14,000 bill that wouldn't pay itself. This was worth it. It had to be. Then she heard voices, male, laughing. Her heart jumped into her throat. You're bleeding on the rug, one voice said. Alvarez is gonna kill you. It's my rug, another replied. She'll live. Footsteps. Close. Getting closer. McKenna turned toward the sound, pulse hammering. The door swung open. 2 men stepped into the room, and everything changed. They moved like they owned the air. Tall, sharp suits, dark hair, gray eyes that swept the room and landed on her like searchlights. Twins. McKenna's breath caught. She'd seen their faces before, magazines, news articles, billboards on the way into the city. The Mercer brothers, tech billionaires, the kind of rich that didn't just buy things, it bought people, it bought silence, it bought power. And now they were standing 10 feet away, looking at her like she was a puzzle they hadn't expected to find. One of them smiled. Warm. Easy. Like he'd never met a stranger in his life. The other one didn't smile at all. He just watched her, studied her, like he was deciding if she was a threat or a tool. Mrs. Alvarez reappeared, walking briskly. Mr. Aiden, Mr. Cole, this is McKenna, the new maid. We're just finishing the interview. The one with the smile stepped forward. Nice to meet you, McKenna. His voice was smooth, friendly, but there was something behind it, something she couldn't name. The other one, the quiet one, spoke next. Where are you from? Atlanta, McKenna said, forcing her voice to stay steady. But my family's from Kenya. He nodded once. Experience? 3 years cleaning houses, 2 years doing care work, seniors mostly. His eyes sharpened. You send money home? The question hit her like a punch. Too personal. Too fast. But she nodded. Yes. What happens if they offer you more? he asked, nodding toward the window. If one of our neighbors tries to poach you, more dollars, less work. Makina's throat tightened. She could feel Mrs. Alvarez watching, could feel the weight of the question pressing down. This was a test. She didn't know the rules, but she knew that much. Two men stepped into the room and everything changed. Then I remember who gave me a chance first. The words came out before Makina could stop them. Bold. Maybe too bold. The room went silent. Aiden Mercer, the one with the warm smile, stared at her. Then he laughed, not a mocking laugh, a real one. Hire her, he said, turning to Mrs. Alvarez, if you haven't already. Mrs. Alvarez's face stayed neutral, but Makina saw something flicker in her eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or respect. The paperwork is ready, Mrs. Alvarez said. If everything clears, she starts Monday. Cole, the quiet one, didn't laugh, didn't smile. He just kept watching Makina like she was a contract he was reading line by line. Fine, he said finally. But this apartment leaks, Makina. Her brows pulled together. Leaks? Secrets, he said, voice flat. People talk, staff talk. Someone always wants a story, a photo, a quote. We don't survive scandals, we just bleed slower. Aiden looked embarrassed. What my brother is trying to say in his charming way is, we need loyalty more than polished silver. You give us that, we'll give you stability. Fair enough? Makina could feel her aunt's warning pressing against her skull. They don't live like us. They don't think like us. But Mama's voice was louder. Take the job, baby. We'll figure out the rest. Yes, Makina said, lifting her chin. Fair enough. Aiden smiled again, softer this time, like he'd just decided she was worth trusting. Cole nodded once. Good. Mrs. Alvarez was already typing on her tablet. You start Monday, 6 a.m. sharp. Makina nodded. Her hands were still shaking, but she kept them at her sides, steady, professional. Thank you, she said. I won't let you down. Aiden waved a hand. We're the ones who should be thanking you. This place is chaos without good people. Cole didn't say anything. He just turned toward the window, hands sliding into his pockets. Mrs. Alvarez gestured toward the hallway. Come, I'll show you your room. You can move in Sunday night if you'd like. Makina followed her, but as they reached the door, Cole's voice cut through the air. One more thing. She stopped, turned. He was still facing the window, but his words were clear, sharp. Don't fall in love with this place, he said. It doesn't love you back. The sentence hung in the air like smoke. Heavy. Cold. Makina didn't know what to say, so she said nothing. Mrs. Alvarez led her down the hall without a word. But Makina could feel it. The weight of Cole's warning settling on her shoulders like a coat she didn't ask for. Her room was small, clean, a bed, a dresser, a bathroom with a door that locked. It was more than she'd had in a long time. This is yours, Mrs. Alvarez said. You'll have privacy. The twins won't bother you here. Makina set her bag down, hands still trembling. They're not what I expected, she said quietly. Mrs. Alvarez paused at the door. No one ever is. Rich doesn't mean simple, Makina. It just means complicated in expensive ways. She left. Makina sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall. She thought about Cole's eyes. The way he looked at her like he was trying to figure out if she'd break or bend. She thought about Aiden's smile. Easy. Warm. But something underneath it. Something guarded. They were billionaires. She was a maid. The math didn't add up to anything but distance. And yet, something about the way they stood in that room felt off. Like they were waiting for something, or someone. Like maybe they needed her more than they wanted to admit. Makina shook her head. She was being stupid. This was a job. Nothing more. She pulled out her phone and texted Mama. "Got the job. I start Monday. I love you." The reply came fast. 3 words. "So proud, baby." Makina's chest tightened. She blinked hard, swallowing the lump in her throat. She was doing this. For Mama, for her brother, for the bills that didn't stop coming. She wasn't here to fall in love with a place that didn't love her back. She was here to survive. But as she lay down that night in the small room at the end of the hall, Cole's words played on repeat in her head. "Don't fall in love with this place. It doesn't love you back." She should have listened. 3 weeks in, and Makina had learned the rhythm of the penthouse like a song she never asked to know. Cole took his coffee black. Burnt, he called it. No sugar, no cream. Just bitter and dark, like the way he looked at the world. Aiden wanted his sweet. Too much sugar, Mrs. Alvarez always said, but he'd smile and drink it anyway. The twins moved fast. Meetings, calls, flights to cities Makina had never heard of. Half the time she only saw them as blurs of expensive cologne and tailored suits rushing toward the elevator. But sometimes their worlds touched hers. It was close to midnight when Makina found herself on her knees in the office, scrubbing red wine out of the carpet. The stain was dark, stubborn, like it wanted to stay. She didn't hear the door open. Did we kill someone? Makina jumped, heart slamming. She looked up. Aiden stood in the doorway, tie loose, sleeves rolled up. He looked tired, the kind of tired that lived in your bones. "It was your vintage Bordeaux, sir," Makina said, sitting back on her heels. "I'm not sure which one hurts more." He laughed, a real laugh. Then he walked in and dropped into the chair across from her. "You're funny," he said. "Most people up here are terrified of us." "I am terrified," she replied. "Just also tired? Sometimes the tired wins?" He watched her for a second. Then he smiled. Softer this time. "You live here alone?" he asked. She nodded. "My family's in Atlanta." "Your parents?" "My mom. My little brother. He thinks New York is a movie set." Aiden leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Ever been on a plane before you came?" She shook her head. "First time." "How was it?" Makina paused, scrub brush still in her hand. She thought about that moment. The clouds breaking. The city lights below. Loud. Cold. Smelled like old coffee, she said. But when the clouds broke and I saw the city lights from the sky, it felt like someone left the world in the oven too long. Everything overcooked and golden. Aiden stared at her. Not like she was the maid, like she was someone he wanted to remember. "You should write," he said quietly. "I should sleep," she replied. "Mrs. Alvarez says if I don't get this stain out, she'll roll me up with the carpet and throw me away." He laughed again, softer this time. "Well, for what it's worth, I appreciate you staying late," he said. "You didn't have to." "Yes, I did," she said. "You signed my paycheck." He looked like he wanted to argue but didn't. Instead, he stood, and as he walked past her, Makina saw it. A limp, small, barely there, but real. His right leg dragged just a little, like it hurt to put weight on it. "You're hurt," she said before she could stop herself. He paused. "Old injury." "Needs ice," she said. "If you keep walking on it like that, you'll regret it when you're old and rich and cranky." He turned, eyebrows raised. "You giving me medical advice now?" "Free of charge." He huffed a small laugh. "Good night, Makina." When the door closed, she realized her cheeks were hot. She cleaned carpets. He owned floors in this city. She saw his pain before he said a word. How often do we ignore the quiet struggles right in front of us? Comment if you've ever felt invisible too. But something had shifted in that room. Something small and dangerous. She'd talked to him like an equal, like he was just a man with a limp and not a billionaire who could fire her with a text. and he hadn't corrected her. He'd smiled. McKenna scrubbed harder at the stain, trying to push the feeling away, but it stuck, like the wine, stubborn, refusing to leave. She thought about Cole's warning, don't fall in love with this place. But what if it wasn't the place she had to worry about? What if it was the people? She shook her head. Stupid. She was being stupid. This was a job, nothing more. But that night, lying in her small room at the end of the hall, she replayed the conversation in her head. The way Aiden looked at her, the way he said, "You should write." Like, he saw something in her she didn't even see in herself. Like maybe, just maybe, she mattered. And that was the most dangerous thing of all. She had no business talking to him like that, but she couldn't stop. Cole was different. If Aiden was firelight, Cole was the quiet behind it. The kind of quiet that watched everything and forgot nothing. McKenna learned that fast. One morning, she was restocking the guest bathroom. The old soap had been drying out her hands, cracking the skin between her fingers. So she switched it. Something with better ingredients. Softer. Nothing expensive. Just practical. She didn't think anyone would notice. Cole noticed. Did anyone approve that? He asked, walking past the bathroom, eyes flicking to the new bottle on the counter. McKenna's stomach dropped. No, sir. I'm sorry, I can change it back. He stopped, picked up the bottle, read the label. For a second, she thought he'd fire her on the spot. Better ingredients, he said finally. Fine. Order more for the other bathrooms. We don't need lawsuits over allergic reactions. He set the bottle down and walked away. McKenna stood there, heart still racing, realizing what had just happened. He hadn't been angry. He'd been paying attention. Cole noticed things most people missed. The way a junior assistant lied about a missed meeting. The way McKenna limped slightly one morning after twisting her ankle on the stairs. He didn't say much, but his eyes said everything. And somehow, that felt more dangerous than Aiden's warmth. The weeks passed. McKenna sent money home every Friday. Like clockwork. Her phone would buzz with texts from Mama. Got it, baby. Thank you. Then a photo of her brother grinning in new sneakers. Look what Sis bought me. Those moments made it worth it. The early mornings, the late nights, the way her back ached from scrubbing floors that didn't belong to her. One Saturday, the twins were both gone, out of the city. The penthouse felt lighter without them. Mrs. Alvarez pulled out flour and eggs. You bake? She asked. McKenna smiled. Mama taught me, before everything got hard. They baked bread, the kind that smelled like home, like Atlanta kitchens and Sunday mornings. Mrs. Alvarez laughed at McKenna's jokes. They talked about family, about dreams that got put on hold, about what it meant to work for people who had everything and still wanted more. This place is a storm, Mrs. Alvarez said, kneading dough with strong hands. But storms pass. Save your money. Don't get attached to this view. It's not our world. I won't, McKenna promised. She meant it. That night, McKenna video called Mama. Her mother's face filled the screen. Older, tired, but smiling. How's New York, baby? Big, loud, cold, McKenna said. But I'm okay. You eating enough? Yes, Mama. You sleeping? Enough. Her brother popped into the frame, grinning. Yo, sis. When you coming home? Soon, she lied. How's school? Boring, but I'm staying out of trouble, promise. McKenna's chest tightened. Good. Keep it that way. Mama leaned closer to the camera. We're proud of you, McKenna. You know that, right? I know. Don't lose yourself up there. Remember who you are. I won't, Mama. But as the call ended, McKenna stared at the blank screen and wondered if that was another lie, because something was shifting. She could feel it. The penthouse didn't feel as foreign anymore. The city lights didn't feel as distant. The twins didn't feel as unreachable. And that scared her more than anything. She was settling in, getting comfortable, starting to forget that this wasn't hers, that she was just passing through, that girls like her didn't get to keep lives like this. One night, she stood on the balcony, the city buzzing below. The air was cold, but she didn't care. For the first time in months, she felt something close to peace, like maybe things would be okay, like maybe she'd made the right choice coming here, like maybe she could build something real out of all this borrowed space. But peace never lasted long. The next morning, she woke to the sound of voices, loud, tense. She walked into the living room and saw the TV on. Breaking news. A reporter stood in front of a factory overseas, smoke in the background, crowds, police. Mercer Industries under fire for factory conditions, the headline read. McKenna's stomach dropped. Mrs. Alvarez stood by the kitchen counter, arms crossed, face tight. What happened? McKenna asked. They're saying the twins exploited workers. Bad conditions. Low wages. People are angry. McKenna stared at the screen, at Aiden's face flashing across it, at the words scrolling underneath. No comment. The penthouse door slammed open. Lawyers poured in. PR people, board members on giant screens. The storm Mrs. Alvarez warned her about had arrived. And McKenna realized something she should have known from the start. Peace was just the pause before the explosion. She was finally settling in until the scandal broke. The penthouse became a war room overnight. Suits everywhere. Lawyers with tight faces, PR people barking into phones, board members on giant screens shouting over each other. McKenna stayed in the hallway, dusting the same picture frame 3 times, trying to stay invisible. But she heard everything. Exploitative wages, viral videos, #trending. We can't afford a walkout. Through the cracked door, she saw Aiden standing in the middle of it all, tie loose, jaw clenched. We either fix what's broken, he said, voice rising, or we admit our apologies are just another PR move and stop pretending we care. His voice cracked on the word care. McKenna froze. She'd seen enough rich men on TV crying fake tears to sell forgiveness, polished apologies written by teams, speeches that meant nothing. But the way Aiden's voice broke, raw and tired, didn't sound rehearsed. It sounded real, and that made it worse, because it meant he cared. And caring didn't change what had already happened. Hours later, the penthouse finally emptied. The lawyers left. The screens went dark. Silence settled heavy like smoke after a fire. McKenna was in the kitchen wiping down counters when Cole walked in. His tie was loose. His eyes looked like they hadn't rested in years. He grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge, twisted the cap too hard. It cracked. Water spilled over his hand. Long day? McKenna asked softly. He looked at her like he'd forgotten anyone else lived here. You saw the news? He said, not a question. Yes. He stared at his wet hand. We don't run those factories, he said quietly. We fund them. We signed contracts. We trusted people who gave us polished reports and pretty numbers. We didn't see the bruises. McKenna stayed very still. People think we're monsters, he continued, voice barely above a whisper. Maybe we are. Maybe if you benefit from something, you're responsible for it, even if you didn't know. He wasn't talking to her. He was confessing to the air. You can cut ties, McKenna said carefully. Do better. Pay fair. His eyes flicked to hers. Sharp. Tired. You grew up where people had to choose between light and food, right? He asked. She nodded. What happens to them? He said slowly. If some billionaire in New York cuts funding overnight and runs a hashtag instead, who feeds them then? McKenna opened her mouth. Closed it. She didn't have an answer. Pain wasn't simple. It never was. Cole set the bottle down. We're not the heroes in this story, McKenna. But we're not the villains either. We're just people who got too far from the ground to see who we were stepping on." He walked out. Makina stood alone in the kitchen, hands gripping the counter. She thought about Mama, about the bills, about the choices you make when every option hurts someone. She thought about the factory workers overseas, about their bruises, their wages, their children who deserved better. And she thought about Aiden's voice cracking, about Cole's confession, about two men who owned the world and still looked like they were drowning. He was rich, but that didn't make the guilt lighter. Sometimes the people we judge the hardest are carrying weights we can't see. Share this if you've ever been misunderstood. Makina finished wiping the counter, but her hands were shaking. She wanted to hate them. It would have been easier, but hate required certainty, and she wasn't certain of anything anymore. That night she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to sort through the mess in her head. The twins weren't monsters, but they weren't saints either. They were just men, flawed, complicated, trying to fix things they didn't even know they'd broken. And somehow, that made it all worse, because it meant there were no easy answers, no clear villains, just people making choices in a world that punished you no matter what you picked. She was starting to understand them, and that terrified her, because understanding led to empathy, and empathy led to forgiveness, and forgiveness led to caring. And caring about people who lived in a different world than you was the fastest way to get your heart broken. Makina rolled over, pulling the blanket tighter. She told herself she wouldn't get attached, wouldn't care, wouldn't let this place change her. But it was already too late. Then the heartbreak came. Not from the news, but from a woman's laugh in the hallway. It was late. The building was quiet. Makina was wiping down the kitchen counters when she heard it. A woman's laugh, high, sharp, expensive. "You're ridiculous," the voice said. "We both know how this ends, Aiden." Makina's hand froze mid-wipe. "I'm just saying," Aiden replied, his tone light but hollow. "You don't have to marry a Mercer to enjoy the benefits of the last name." The woman laughed again. Makina moved quietly toward the hallway, staying in the shadows. Through the crack in the door, she saw her. Perfect hair. Perfect dress. Heels that probably cost more than Makina's entire year's salary. She knew that face. Everyone did. America's most talked about influencer. The kind of woman who showed up on billboards and magazine covers. The kind of woman who lived in the same world as the twins. The woman had one hand on Aiden's chest, casual, familiar. "You're sweet," she said, leaning in close, "but your brother's the one the board wants me to cozy up to, remember?" Aiden's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Right. Got to keep the shareholders happy." "Don't pout." She whispered something in his ear Makina couldn't hear. He chuckled. The sound was empty. Footsteps. Cole appeared at the other end of the hall, phone in hand, face unreadable. "Car's waiting," he said. The woman turned, smile already in place. Perfect timing. She slid her arm through Cole's like it belonged there. For a moment, Cole's eyes flicked past her, to where Makina stood half hidden in the shadows. Their gazes met. He saw her. She saw him see her. Something flickered across his face. Apology, maybe, or guilt. She wasn't sure. Then he was gone. They all were. The door closed. The penthouse went silent. Makina stood there, rag hanging limp from her fingers, heart beating too fast. She'd known. Of course she'd known. Men like them didn't end up with women like her, but somewhere between spilled wine and late-night jokes, between Aiden telling her she should write, and Cole noticing when she twisted her ankle, she'd let a stupid, small hope crawl into her chest. That maybe, just maybe, she mattered. That maybe the way Aiden looked at her meant something. That maybe Cole's quiet attention wasn't just professional. Watching him walk away with a woman who lived in his world made that tiny hope fold in on itself like paper in the rain. She knew her place, but knowing didn't make it hurt less. If you've ever felt like you didn't belong, drop a comment. You're not alone. Makina finished the counters with shaking hands. She scrubbed harder than she needed to, like she could scrub away the ache settling in her chest. The next morning she worked without talking much. Mrs. Alvarez noticed. She always noticed. They were folding sheets in the laundry room when the older woman finally spoke. You saw her, Mrs. Alvarez said. Not a question. Makina nodded. She's been around before. Board wants them married off. Good for the company image. Does it matter what they want? Makina asked quietly. Mrs. Alvarez paused, hands still on the sheet. Not really. Men like them don't get to choose their lives the way you think they do. Money buys a lot of things. Freedom isn't always one of them. Makina wanted to argue, wanted to say they had more freedom than anyone she'd ever known, but she kept her mouth shut. Don't fall in love with this place, Mrs. Alvarez said softly, eyes kind but firm. It doesn't love you back. I'm not in love, Makina muttered. Mrs. Alvarez gave her a look, the kind of look that said she knew better. Good, she said. Keep it that way. Feelings are expensive here, and we don't make enough to pay for that kind of trouble. Makina nodded, but the words felt hollow, because the truth was she'd already started paying. Every time Aiden smiled at her, every time Cole noticed something small, every time this place made her feel like maybe she could belong, she was paying in pieces of herself she couldn't afford to lose. That night, she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment Cole's eyes met hers, the apology in his gaze, like he knew what she'd felt, like he knew it was too late to stop it. Makina turned over, pulling the blanket up to her chin. She told herself it didn't matter, that she'd move on, that this was just a job and she'd keep her head down and her heart closed. But promises made in the dark rarely survived the morning light. Mrs. Alvarez warned her again. Don't fall in love with this place. 2 weeks later, the warning became prophecy. 2 weeks later, Makina was in the laundry room sorting whites when Mrs. Alvarez walked in. Her face was pale, tight. Put that down, she said. Makina's heart jumped. What's wrong? Come with me. They walked in silence down the hallway. Mrs. Alvarez didn't say a word, didn't look at her. Makina's stomach twisted. They reached the office. Cole and Aiden stood by the desk. A small black velvet box sat open in front of them, empty. On the security screen behind them, a frozen image. Makina, in the office, earlier that day. Dusting the shelves, Cole's face was stone. Where is it? He asked. Makina's mouth went dry. Where is what? The ring, Cole said, voice flat. Our mother's ring. It was in that box this morning. Now it's gone. The floor tilted under her feet. I don't know, Makina said quickly. I never touched the box. I just dusted around it. The cameras say you were the last staff member in this room before it went missing, Cole replied. The cameras don't show my hands, she shot back, fear cracking into anger. You know that. You can't even see the box clearly from that angle. Aiden's jaw worked. He looked like he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. We're not saying you took it, he said finally. We're saying it's missing. And you were here. We need to search your room. The world stopped. You think I stole from you? Makina whispered. It's procedure, Cole said. Not personal. Not personal. The words hit her like a slap. After everything? Makina's voice shook. I send half my pay home. I don't even own anything nice enough to steal in. It's procedure, Cole repeated, voice harder now. Makina stared at him, at the man who'd noticed when she changed the soap, who'd confessed his guilt in the kitchen, who'd looked at her with apology in his eyes just 2 weeks ago. Now he looked at her like she was a problem to solve. That's all I am to you? She asked quietly. A headline to avoid? He didn't answer. Aiden stepped forward. "Makina, please. Just let us search. If it's not there, this ends. We move on." Move on. Like it was that simple. Like being accused of theft by the people you'd started to trust was something you just moved on from. Makina swallowed hard. "Search it," she said. "Search whatever you want." Mrs. Alvarez looked away. They brought building security. 2 men in uniforms who treated her like a criminal before they even started. They went through her drawers, her closet, her shoes. They checked under the bed, inside the pillowcase, even the lining of her suitcase. Makina stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching strangers tear through the only space that had felt like hers. Cold humiliation crawled up her spine. "This is ridiculous," Aiden muttered at one point. "If she says she didn't take it—" "It's not about what she says," Cole interrupted. "It's about what we can prove when this ends up in the press." Makina stared at him. So that's what this was. Not about the ring, not about trust, about damage control, about making sure the Billionaire twins didn't look stupid for trusting the help. Security finished. "Nothing." "Clear," one of them said. Mrs. Alvarez dismissed them with a tight nod. The door closed. Silence. Makina's hands were shaking. She shoved them into her pockets. "Maybe you misplaced it," Mrs. Alvarez said carefully to the twins. "Things happen." "Our mother wore that ring every day for 20 years, Cole said, voice tight. "We don't misplace that." More silence, then Aiden spoke. Soft. Almost broken. "Makina," he said, "until we figure this out, we're going to have to let you go." The floor dropped out from under her. "Let me go?" she repeated. "We'll pay you for the month," Cole added quickly. "We'll give you a reference that doesn't mention this. But we can't keep you here while there are questions." Questions. That was a nice word for what they really meant. Doubt, suspicion, guilt. Makina looked at the expensive rug under her worn sneakers, at Mrs. Alvarez's sorrowful face, at the 2 men who'd made her think, just for a second, that she mattered. "I came here to help my family," she said, voice shaking. "I scrubbed your floors. I stayed up late washing glasses from your parties. I watched your scandals and felt bad for you when people called you monsters." Her eyes burned. "I told my mother you were good men. Just complicated." She took off her apron, folded it neatly, set it on the desk. "I was wrong." "Makina," Aiden started. "No." She held up a hand. "I know who gets believed in rooms like this. It's not me." She walked past them, down the hall, to her room. 1 suitcase in, 1 suitcase out. She packed in 5 minutes. When the elevator doors closed, she didn't look back. What they found, or didn't find, would destroy everything. The motel room smelled like old carpet and defeat. Makina sat on the edge of the bed, suitcase still packed by the door, phone buzzing non-stop in her hand. Mama calling, her aunt calling, bill reminders flashing like tiny knives. She'd sent most of her savings home already. 3 weeks of pay left, maybe 4 if she stretched it. Not enough. She stared at the cracked ceiling and felt the weight of everything pressing down. The job she'd lost, the trust she'd given, the stupid, foolish hope that had gotten her here. She'd walked out of that penthouse with her head high, shoulders back, eyes dry. But the second the elevator doors closed, she'd crumpled. Now, 3 days later, she was still trying to figure out how to stand back up. Her phone buzzed again. "Mama," Makina answered. "Baby, what happened?" Mama's voice cracked. "Your aunt said you lost the job." "It's complicated," Makina said. "Did you do something wrong?" The question stung more than it should have. "No, Mama, I didn't." "Then why?" "They accused me of stealing." The words came out flat, empty. Something went missing. They thought it was me. Silence. Then Mama's voice, softer now. "Did they find it?" "No, because I didn't take it." "Then why did they fire you?" "Because I'm the maid, Mama, and maids don't get believed." More silence. "Come home," Mama said finally. McKenna closed her eyes. I can't. I need to find another job. I need to send money. We'll figure it out. Just come home. There's nothing to figure out in Atlanta. You know that. Mama sighed. Long. Tired. I don't want you breaking yourself for us, baby. I'm not broken, McKenna lied. But she was. She'd walked away with nothing but her dignity. And dignity didn't pay rent, didn't buy medicine, didn't keep the lights on. She left with her head high, even though her heart was breaking. How many people do the same every day? Like this if you've ever had to walk away with nothing but your dignity. After the call ended, McKenna sat in the silence, staring at the wall. She thought about Aiden's face, the way he'd looked at her when he said, "We're going to have to let you go." Like it hurt him to say it. Like he wished there was another way. But wishing didn't change anything. She thought about Cole, stone-faced, unmoved, talking about procedure like she was a problem to solve instead of a person. She thought about Mrs. Alvarez's warning. Don't fall in love with this place. She hadn't fallen in love with the place. She'd fallen for the people. And that was worse. The next 2 days blurred together. Job searches online, applications sent into the void, cheap takeout she could barely afford. Every time her phone buzzed, her heart jumped, hoping it was an interview. It never was. On the 4th day, someone knocked on the motel door. McKenna froze. No one knew she was here. Not Mama, not her aunt, no one. The knock came again, firmer this time. Who is it? She called, voice tight. McKenna Njoroge? A male voice asked. My name is Graham. I'm an attorney. Her stomach dropped. An attorney. They were suing her. They were going to drag her through court, ruin her name, make sure she never worked again. She stood slowly, legs shaking, and opened the door a crack. The man in the hallway wore a suit, but not the glossy kind Mercer employees wore. His was wrinkled, his tie crooked, his eyes sharp but kind. Do you work for the twins? She asked. No, he said. I worked for their mother. That was somehow worse. I'm not going back, McKenna said quickly. If this is about my behavior, it's about your inheritance, he interrupted. She blinked. My what? He smiled gently. Can I come in? This will take a few minutes. McKenna's mind raced. Inheritance? She didn't know anyone in New York, didn't have family here, didn't have anything. But she let him in. He sat at the small table, opened a worn leather folder, and placed a document between them. This is the will of Evelyn Mercer, he said, drafted 2 years before she passed. I've been trying to reach you for 6 months. McKenna's brain fogged. Reach me? Why? He slid the page closer, tapping a line with his pen. Her eyes scanned the words. Once. Twice. Then her whole world tilted sideways. 3 days in a motel. Then someone knocked. In the event of my death, the document read, my sons, Aiden and Cole, will retain joint control of the Mercer Group. However, the deciding vote on all matters related to labor, employee welfare, and community impact shall belong to the person I have chosen and observed to reflect my values most clearly in this house, McKenna Njoroge, provided she remains a person of integrity. McKenna stared at the words until they blurred. I don't understand, she whispered. Graham smiled sadly. Mrs. Mercer was tired near the end. She saw the way this city chews people up. She didn't want her boys to turn into men who only answered to money. So she came up with this unusual idea. She didn't even like me at first, McKenna said, mind flashing back to an older woman in designer scarves watching her from the kitchen doorway. Silent, sharp, always watching. She watched you, Graham corrected, how you spoke to the staff, how you sent money home instead of buying new things, how you told her once when she asked about your dreams that you'd rather sleep in peace than on silk. McKenna remembered that conversation. She'd thought no one was listening. The will is clear, Graham continued. You own no shares. You have no claim to their money. But in any vote where they disagree on matters that affect workers and communities, you break the tie. Legally. Permanently. McKenna's heartbeat roared in her ears. They don't know, she said. Graham nodded. They know someone was named. They don't know who. Mrs. Mercer wanted them to build their empire like they would if no one was watching. She believed true character shows when you think no one's keeping score. McKenna's chest ached. This couldn't be real. She was a maid. A girl from Atlanta who scrubbed floors and sent money home. She didn't belong in boardrooms. Didn't belong making decisions that moved billions. Why me? She asked, voice cracking. Because you're the only one who remembers what it's like to choose between medicine and rent, Graham said simply. Mrs. Mercer believed that kind of memory was worth more than any business degree. McKenna stood, pacing the small motel room. Her hands were shaking. This is insane, she said. I don't know anything about running a company. You're not running it, Graham said. You're holding the line. When they disagree on something that affects real people, you decide. That's it. That's it? McKenna laughed, the sound sharp and broken. That's everything. Graham stayed quiet, letting her process. McKenna thought about the factory scandal, the workers overseas, the choices the twins made without seeing the bruises. She thought about Cole's confession in the kitchen. Maybe if you benefit from something, you're responsible for it. She thought about all the people like her, the invisible ones, the ones who worked hard and stayed quiet and hoped someone, somewhere, was paying attention. Mrs. Mercer had been paying attention, and she'd chosen McKenna. They don't know it's me, McKenna said slowly. No. And the ring? She asked suddenly, turning to face him. His mother's ring. It went missing. They fired me over it. Graham's expression darkened. The ring is in my safe, he said. McKenna froze. What? Mrs. Mercer left it to you, Graham said quietly. A token, she called it. For the girl who understood that clean floors and clean conscience were both worth protecting. The room tilted. And you didn't tell them? McKenna's voice rose. You let them think I stole it? They didn't ask, Graham replied. They asked if their mother left them anything else. I told them about the donation to the foundation, the letters, the trust. They never asked if anything went to you. They assumed they were the only ones who mattered. Anger flared hot in McKenna's chest. So, you let them accuse me, fire me, humiliate me. I had to know, Graham said, meeting her eyes. If you'd stay a person of integrity even when it cost you everything. Mrs. Mercer's condition was clear. The vote only goes to you if you remain who you are, honest, loyal, unbroken. McKenna stared at him. You tested me, she said, voice shaking. You let them destroy me to see if I'd break. I'm sorry, Graham said, and he sounded like he meant it. But Mrs. Mercer was right. You didn't break. You walked out with your dignity. That's rare in this world. McKenna sat down hard, head spinning. She'd been fired, humiliated, left with nothing, and it had all been a test she'd passed without even knowing she was taking it. So what now? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. Graham leaned forward. Now you decide. Walk away, or step into what Mrs. Mercer believed you were meant to be. McKenna looked at the will, at her name printed in ink that felt too permanent. And the ring? Graham's answer made her want to scream. McKenna stood, fists clenched, staring at Graham like he'd just set her world on fire. The ring was mine, she said slowly, and you let them accuse me of stealing it. Yes. You watched them search my room. Fire me. Treat me like a criminal. Yes. And you said nothing. Graham didn't flinch. Mrs. Mercer's instructions were clear. I couldn't intervene. I had to wait and see what you'd do. McKenna's hands shook, not from fear, from rage. They never asked if anything went to me, she said, voice rising. They just assumed they were the only ones who mattered. Exactly, Graham said quietly. And that's why Mrs. Mercer left you the deciding vote. Because she knew they'd forget. Forget that the people around them are human, that they have names, that they matter. McKenna paced the small room, chest heaving. She thought about the way Cole looked at her that day. Stone-faced, unmoved, like she was a problem on a spreadsheet. She thought about Aiden's weak defense. We're not saying you took it. But they were. They absolutely were. They never asked if she mattered. How many times do we forget to ask the people who serve us if they're okay? Comment, I see you, if this hit different. I cried for 3 days, McKenna said, voice cracking. I didn't know how I'd pay rent, didn't know how to tell my mama I'd failed. I sat in this room and felt like nothing. I know, Graham said, and I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix it. No, he agreed. But this does. He tapped the will. McKenna looked down at it, at her name, at the power written in ink that felt too heavy to hold. What happens if I say yes? She asked. You go back, Graham said. You sit across from them. You tell them the truth, and you take your seat at the table. And if I say no, you walk away. The will sits in a file. The twins keep running things the way they always have. And nothing changes. McKenna sat down hard, head in her hands. She thought about the factory workers, the people overseas with bruises the twins never saw. She thought about Mrs. Alvarez, about the other staff, about everyone who worked in the shadows of rich people's lives, invisible until something went wrong. She thought about Mama, about her brother, about every person who'd ever been told they didn't matter because they weren't born with the right last name. They'll hate me, McKenna said quietly. Probably, Graham said. At first, they'll fight me. Definitely. They'll make my life hell. Graham smiled faintly. Mrs. Mercer counted on that too. She believed you were strong enough to take it. McKenna looked up. What if I'm not? Then you wouldn't have walked out of that penthouse with your head high, Graham said. You would have begged, or screamed, or broken. But you didn't. You left with dignity. That's the kind of strength money can't buy. McKenna's throat tightened. She thought about the girl who got on a Greyhound bus with one suitcase and a dream she couldn't afford. She thought about the woman who scrubbed floors and sent money home and stayed quiet even when it hurt. She thought about who she'd been and who she was becoming. If I do this, McKenna said slowly, I'm not doing it halfway. I'm not sitting in that room to nod and smile. If I'm breaking ties, I'm doing it for the people who need it. Not for them. Graham's eyes shone. That's exactly what Mrs. Mercer hoped you'd say. McKenna stood. Her hands were still shaking, but her voice was steady. Call them, she said. All of them. The board. The brothers. Whoever needs to be in the room. If we're doing this, we're doing it right. For the first time in days, a flame lit in her chest. Not anger. Not fear. Conviction. Graham packed up the will, stood, and extended his hand. Welcome back, Ms. Nuroge. She shook it. As he reached the door, McKenna called after him. Graham? He turned. The ring, she said. I want to see it. He nodded. I'll bring it when we meet with them. He left. McKenna stood alone in the motel room, staring at her reflection in the dark TV screen. A girl who was supposed to be invisible. A girl who'd been tested without knowing. A girl who'd just been handed the power to change everything. She thought about Cole, about Aiden, about the look on their faces when they realized who she really was. She thought about the choice in front of her. Walk away or fight. What would you do with that kind of power? 2 days later, McKenna stood outside Mercer Tower again. Same building, same glass doors, same girl. But everything was different now. She wasn't here to clean floors. She wasn't here to beg for her job back. She was here to take what was always hers. Graham stood beside her, leather folder in hand. "Ready?" McKenna's heart hammered, but her voice was steady. "Yes." They walked through the lobby. The security guard glanced up, did a double take. "Miss Njoroge?" he said, confused. I'm expected," she said. He checked his screen, frowned, then nodded. Elevator 3. The ride up felt longer this time. McKenna watched the numbers climb. 10, 20, 40, 60. Her reflection stared back at her from the mirrored walls. Same brown skin, same tired eyes, same hands that had scrubbed their floors. But she stood taller now. The elevator doors opened. The penthouse looked the same. Floor-to-ceiling windows, city lights glittering below. The air still smelled expensive, but McKenna didn't feel small anymore. Mrs. Alvarez stood in the hallway. When she saw McKenna, her face went pale. "McKenna?" she whispered. "What are you doing here?" "My job," McKenna said simply. Mrs. Alvarez looked at Graham, then back at McKenna. Understanding flickered across her face. "They're in the conference room," she said quietly. "All of them." McKenna nodded. As she walked past, Mrs. Alvarez reached out, squeezed her hand. "Show them who you are." McKenna squeezed back. "I will." The conference room doors were closed, voices inside, tense, arguing. Graham paused, hand on the handle. "Once we walk in, there's no going back." "Good," McKenna said. "I don't want to go back." He opened the door. The room went silent. Cole and Aiden sat at the head of the table. Board members lined both sides, lawyers, executives, people in suits who looked at McKenna like she was a stain on the carpet. Cole's face went from confusion to shock. "McKenna?" Aiden stood. "What are you doing here?" "Sit down, Mr. Mercer," Graham said calmly. "We have business to discuss." "We fired her," Cole said, voice tight. "She has no business here." "Actually," Graham said, setting the folder on the table, "she has all the business here." He slid copies of the will across the table. One to Cole. One to Aiden. One to the lead board member. McKenna stood at the end of the table, hands clasped in front of her, watching their faces as they read. Cole's jaw tightened. Aiden's eyes widened. "This can't be real," Cole said. "It's real," Graham replied. "Signed. Witnessed. Legally binding." "Our mother left her the deciding vote?" Aiden's voice rose. "On labor and welfare decisions?" "Correct." Cole stared at McKenna. "You knew." "No," McKenna said, voice steady. "I found out 4 days ago. In a motel room, after you fired me." The room shifted. Board members whispered. Lawyers leaned in, reading faster. "This is insane," one board member said. "She's not qualified." "She's exactly as qualified as Mrs. Mercer believed she needed to be," Graham interrupted. "And her qualifications aren't up for debate. The will is clear." Aiden ran a hand through his hair. "McKenna, we didn't know." "You didn't ask," she said, cutting him off. "You accused me of stealing, searched my room, fired me, and you never once asked if your mother left me anything. You just assumed I didn't matter." The words landed like stones. Cole's face went pale. "The ring," Aiden said slowly. "Where is it?" Graham reached into his briefcase, pulled out a small velvet box. He set it on the table in front of McKenna. "Mrs. Mercer left it to Ms. Njoroge," he said. "It's been in my safe for 6 months." Silence. McKenna opened the box. The ring sat inside, simple and beautiful. A band of gold with a small diamond, nothing flashy, just real. She closed it, set it back on the table. "I didn't steal from you," she said quietly. "Your mother gave it to me, because she saw something in me you didn't. She saw that I cared about people more than I cared about looking important." Cole's hands clenched on the table. And now, McKenna continued, voice growing stronger, I'm here to do what she asked, to make sure that when you make decisions that affect real people, someone in the room remembers what it's like to be one of them. She pulled out the chair at the end of the table. Sat down. The board members stared. The lawyers whispered. The twins looked like they'd been hit by lightning. McKenna met Cole's gaze, then Aiden's. So, she said, let's get to work. She walked back into the place that fired her. This time, they couldn't touch her. Graham dismissed the board members with a wave. Give us the room. They filed out slowly, whispering, glancing back at McKenna like she was a bomb that might explode. The door closed. Silence. Just McKenna, the twins, and Graham. Cole stared at the will like it was written in a language he didn't understand. Aiden looked wrecked, shirt wrinkled, eyes red. You knew our mother, Cole said to Graham, voice tight. You watched her sign this and never told us. I told you exactly what she asked me to tell you, Graham replied calmly. You both signed it as witnesses. We were kids, Aiden snapped. We signed whatever our mother put in front of us. And she counted on that, Graham said. So she could trust your future to someone who remembered what struggle tasted like. Aiden turned to McKenna. His face cracked. You should have told us, when we hired you, when she got sick. I didn't know, McKenna said, voice steady. He showed me the will 3 days ago. In a motel room I barely afforded because you fired me. Aiden flinched like she'd slapped him. Cole just stared at the table. I'm sorry, Aiden said, voice rough. For the ring. For the way we handled it. For not trusting you. Sorry doesn't give me back the nights I cried wondering how I'd pay my mother's bills, McKenna replied. But thank you. The words hung in the air, heavy. True. Cole finally spoke. What do you want? The question hit her square in the chest. No one had asked her that in a long time. McKenna leaned forward, hands flat on the table. I want your workers to be paid enough to live without choosing between medicine and rent, she said. I want the factories overseas to have air that doesn't choke children. I want your staff to know they're more than rumors in your hallways. And I want you to stop using the word procedure like it covers every wound. Aiden's throat moved as he swallowed. This document gives you the deciding vote, Cole said, tapping the will. On matters of labor and welfare, it doesn't give you control over our personal lives, our finances, our relationship with each other. I don't want your money, Cole, McKenna said, meeting his gaze. I want your mirrors to work, so when you look in them, you're not just seeing a suit someone else paid for, you're seeing men who didn't step on everyone else to get higher. Silence settled. Heavy, but not as sharp as before. Aiden exhaled slowly. So what now? We bring you to board meetings? Drag you in front of cameras? What now? Graham said, standing. Is that you gentlemen officially recognize Ms. Nuroga's position, as your mother wished. Then we talk about how to introduce her to the board without making it a circus. Cole picked up a pen, turned it in his fingers. He looked at McKenna, really looked at her, like he was seeing her for the first time. Why did you come back? He asked quietly. You could have burned us online, sold this story, made a fortune exposing the big bad billionaires who fired the maid they secretly needed. McKenna thought of her mother's hands, cracked from detergent, her brother's laugh, Mrs. Alvarez's tired eyes. Because I'm tired of watching rich men apologize on TV and then change nothing, she said. This way, I don't have to trust your words. I can help make sure your actions match. She didn't want revenge. She wanted change. If you've ever wanted the same, share this story. Some battles are bigger than one person. Aiden's lips parted, like he wanted to say something, but couldn't find the words. Cole set the pen down. When our mother died, he said quietly, I promised her we'd grow the company big enough that no one in our family would ever worry about money again. I didn't realize that meant people in other families would break under the weight we put on them. He slid the pen toward McKenna. That was my blind spot, he said. This, he nodded at the will, was hers. You were hers. Her last twist in a game she refused to let money win. He took a breath. And now we're here. His eyes met hers. Gray, unflinching. And we're asking you not just to sit in those rooms, he said. We're asking you to walk into this fire with us. McKenna's pulse quickened. Then Cole said the words that brought them full circle. You'll take the both of us tonight, Cole said softly. McKenna's heart stopped. Those words. The same words that had terrified her weeks ago. The same words that had brought her back to this moment, but this time they sounded different. Not as your bosses, Cole continued, as your partners in this. We drag our name through every factory, every contract, every paycheck. You hold the line when we try to compromise. You say no when the math looks good, but the souls look bad. He leaned forward, eyes locked on hers. You take us. Both of us. Or you walk away and leave us to keep pretending we're not breaking things we can't fix. McKenna stared at him. For weeks, that sentence had echoed in her head like something dirty, dangerous, a threat wrapped in power. Now, stripped of fear, she heard what it really was. A surrender. Not of money. Of control. We need you, Aiden said, voice cracking. Not because our mother said so. Because you're the only person in this building who'll tell us the truth even when it costs you everything. He stood, hands braced on the table. You think we sleep at night? He asked. You think we don't hear every headline like a punch? We've been patching holes with cash and hoping no one looked too closely. You being in that chair means we stop patching and start rebuilding. McKenna's throat tightened. And what happens when I say something you don't like? She asked. When I vote against a deal you love? You fire me again? No, Cole said firmly. We can't. Legally. That's what deciding vote means. You're in this until you choose to leave. We're stuck with you, McKenna. A breathless laugh escaped her. Disbelief and something almost like hope twisted together. Wow, she muttered. Your mother really didn't trust you. For the first time since she'd walked in, Cole smiled. Small. Real. She trusted us enough to know we'd need help, he said. And she trusted you enough to give it. Aiden stepped closer. Look, we're not asking you to like us. We're not asking you to forgive us. We're asking you to fight with us. To drag us through the mud when we deserve it. To make us better than we'd be on our own. McKenna looked from one brother to the other. Two men who could change numbers on a screen that meant whole lives. Two men who, for all their money, were standing there like boys in front of a teacher they didn't want to disappoint. Her, the maid. The world was ridiculous sometimes. I'm not your savior, McKenna said slowly. I'm not a saint. I'm going to make mistakes. So will you. But if I'm doing this, we do it all the way. No half-truths, no fake charity drives to cover real harm. We set a standard and we live up to it, even when no one's watching. Aiden's eyes shone. Deal. Cole nodded once. Deal. McKenna reached for the pen. Her hand still shook, but her voice didn't when she spoke. Your mother saw something in me I didn't see in myself, she said. She gave me a chance to matter. To make sure people like me aren't invisible anymore. She looked at Cole, then Aiden. I won't waste it. The pen felt heavy in her hand, heavier than it should. Because signing meant everything changed. Signing meant she couldn't go back to being the girl who stayed quiet and hoped someone else would fix things. Signing meant stepping into a war she hadn't asked for, but couldn't walk away from. Graham set a document in front of her, official, legal, binding. This acknowledges your position, he said. Once you sign, it's registered with the state. Permanent. McKenna stared at the blank line, waiting for her name. One signature. One moment. One choice that would either save her or destroy her. She thought about Mama, about her brother, about Mrs. Alvarez and every person who'd ever scrubbed floors and prayed someone was paying attention. She thought about the factory, workers, the bruises, the wages, the children who deserved better. She thought about Cole's confession in the kitchen, Aiden's voice cracking on the word care. She thought about the ring in the velvet box, a token from a woman who'd watched her when no one else did. The pen touched paper. She stared at the pen. One signature, and the world would shift forever. McKenna signed. The ink bled slightly into the paper, spreading like a promise she couldn't take back. Silence. Cole exhaled. Aiden closed his eyes briefly, like he'd been holding his breath. Graham collected the document, made copies, filed them carefully. "It's done," he said. "Ms. Nyorog is officially recognized." Just like that, the world shifted. No fanfare, no applause, just a girl's name on a page and two billionaires who'd just surrendered control. "Now what?" McKenna asked. Graham pulled a stack of folders from his briefcase. Thick, heavy. "Now we work." He spread contracts across the table. Factory agreements, supply chain documents, payroll structures, pages and pages of numbers and legal terms that looked like another language. "These are the current contracts for overseas operations," Graham said. "Mrs. Mercer flagged them before she died. She wanted you to review them." McKenna stared at the mountain of paper. "I don't know how to read legal contracts." "You know how to read people," Graham said. "Start there. Ask questions. They'll answer." He looked at the twins. McKenna pulled the first folder closer, opened it, scanned the page. "This factory in Indonesia," she said. "What's the hourly wage?" Cole glanced at the document. $2.30. How many hours a week? 60. Sometimes 70 during peak season. McKenna did the math in her head. So they make about $140 a week for 70 hours. Yes. "What's rent there?" Aiden pulled out his phone, searched. "Average rent for a small apartment is about $80 a month. And food? Another 60, maybe 70. McKenna leaned back. "So wait, after rent and food, they have maybe $10 left. For clothes, medicine, emergencies, school for their kids." The twins didn't answer. "And we call that fair?" McKenna asked. "It's competitive for the region," Cole said carefully. "Competitive doesn't mean right." Silence. She didn't wait for someone to save her. She became the change. If that inspired you, drop a like. Somebody else needs to see this. "What would fair look like?" Aiden asked. McKenna thought about Mama, about choosing between medicine and rent, about the weight of $10 when it was all you had. "Double it," she said, "minimum, and cap the hours at 50 a week." Cole's jaw tightened. "That changes the profit margin significantly." "Good," McKenna said. "Maybe profit shouldn't come from people who can't afford to eat." Aiden rubbed his face. "The board will fight this." "Then we fight back," McKenna said. "That's why I'm here, remember?" Graham pulled another contract, then another. They worked through the stack, one by one. McKenna asked questions that made the twins uncomfortable, questions they'd never thought to ask. What's the air quality in the factory? Are there bathrooms? Can workers sit? Do they get breaks? What happens if they get sick? Some answers were okay, most weren't. Hours passed, coffee appeared, then food no one touched. The city outside went from dark to gray to pink as dawn crept up. McKenna's hand ached from notes. Her eyes burned, but she didn't stop, because stopping meant going back to a world where people like her didn't matter, and she was done with that world. Around 4 in the morning, Cole leaned back in his chair, exhausted. "You're not going to make this easy, are you?" he asked. "No," McKenna said. "Your mother didn't pick me to make it easy." She picked me to make it right. Aiden smiled, tired but real. She knew what she was doing. Graham stood, stretching. We'll reconvene Monday. Give the board time to process. Give you all time to sleep. McKenna gathered her notes. Her hands were shaking from exhaustion, but her chest felt lighter than it had in weeks. Purpose. That's what this was. Purpose that didn't depend on someone else's approval. As they filed out, Aiden stopped beside her. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For coming back. For not giving up on us." McKenna looked at him. At the tired lines around his eyes, the weight he carried that money couldn't lift. "I didn't come back for you," she said. "I came back for the people who don't have a voice. But if that helps you too, I'll take it." He nodded. Fair enough. Cole waited by the door. When McKenna approached, he didn't move. "My mother was right about you," he said. "We'll see," McKenna replied. She walked past him, down the hall, into the elevator. As the doors closed, she caught her reflection in the mirror. Same girl, different world. But one question still hung in the air. Could they really change? Monday morning, McKenna walked into her first board meeting. The room was full. 20 executives in expensive suits. Lawyers, financial advisors. People who'd spent their whole lives in rooms like this. And then there was her. She wore a simple dress. Nothing fancy. Mrs. Alvarez had offered to take her shopping, but McKenna refused. "They need to see who I am," she'd said, "not who they want me to be." The twins sat at the head of the table. Cole's face was unreadable. Aiden gave her a small nod. McKenna took her seat. A board member named Richard spoke first. Gray hair, sharp eyes, the kind of man who smiled when he wanted to cut you. "Ms. Nyoroga," he said, voice dripping false politeness. "Welcome, though I must say this is highly unusual." Mrs. Mercer's will was clear, Graham said from his seat beside McKenna. "Ms. Njorogi has full voting rights on labor and welfare matters." "Yes, but surely we can agree that someone with actual business experience—" "The will doesn't require business experience," McKenna interrupted. "It requires integrity, and Mrs. Mercer believed I had that." Richard's smile tightened. "Of course." The meeting began. Budget reports, projections, stock prices, words that meant nothing to McKenna until they got to the Indonesia factory contract. "We're renewing the current terms," Richard said. "Standard rates, competitive for the region." "No," McKenna said. The room went silent. "Excuse me?" Richard asked. "No," McKenna repeated. "We're not renewing at current rates. We're doubling the hourly wage and capping hours at 50 per week." Murmurs rippled through the room. "That's financially irresponsible," another board member said. "It cuts our margin by 30%. "Good," McKenna said. "Maybe we don't need margins built on people who can't afford to live." "This isn't how business works," Richard snapped. "Then maybe business needs to work differently," McKenna shot back. Aiden leaned forward. "We've reviewed the numbers. We can absorb the cost. It won't break us." "But it sets a precedent," Richard argued. "Other factories will demand the same. Competitors will undercut us." "Let them," Cole said, voice calm but firm. "We'd rather lose a contract than exploit people." The room erupted, arguments, objections, voices talking over each other. Graham stood. "Gentlemen, the deciding vote belongs to Ms. Nyoroga. That's not up for debate." "This is insane," Richard said. "You're letting a maid decide company policy." McKenna stood slowly. Every eye turned to her. "You're right," she said. "I am a maid. I've scrubbed floors you've walked on without noticing. I've washed dishes from parties I wasn't invited to. I've sent money home so my mother could afford her medicine while you debated stock options. Her voice didn't shake. And that's exactly why I'm here. Because I know what it's like to choose between food and rent, to work 70 hours and still come up short, to be invisible until something goes wrong. She looked around the room. You want someone with business experience? Hire a consultant. But Mrs. Mercer wanted someone who'd remember that numbers on a spreadsheet are people with families. And that's me. Silence. The vote is final, Graham said. The contract will be rewritten with the new terms. Richard sat back, jaw tight. Others whispered. But no one argued. McKenna sat down, heart pounding. Aiden caught her eye. Smiled. The meeting ended. Board members filed out, some shaking their heads, others avoiding her gaze. When the room emptied, Cole stood. That was bold. That was necessary, McKenna replied. They're going to fight you, he said. Every step. Let them. Aiden grinned. My mother knew what she was doing. McKenna allowed herself a small smile. We'll see. That night, McKenna stood on the penthouse balcony, city glowing below. Mrs. Alvarez joined her, handed her tea. You did it, the older woman said softly. I did one thing, McKenna replied. There's a lot more to do. But you won today. That matters. McKenna sipped the tea. It was warm, real, like hope tasted. Do you think they'll really change? She asked. Mrs. Alvarez thought for a moment. I think they'll try, and sometimes trying is enough to start. McKenna nodded. She'd won. A small win. Fragile, but real. Workers in Indonesia would get fair wages, would work fewer hours, would breathe a little easier, because of her, because Mrs. Mercer had seen something worth protecting. For the first time in months, McKenna felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. But not everyone was happy. And some fights don't end quietly. The headlines hit 3 days later. Former Maid now controls Mercer Billions. Billionaire twins hand-powered a housekeeper. Cinderella story or corporate stunt. McKenna's phone exploded. News requests, interview offers, strangers on social media with opinions about her life. Some praised her, called her brave, a voice for the voiceless. Others mocked her, called it a publicity stunt, said she was out of her depth, a token, a joke. The cruel ones were the loudest. She doesn't belong there. What does a maid know about running a company? This is what happens when billionaires play charity games. McKenna tried to ignore it, but ignoring a fire doesn't make it stop burning. Then the threat started. Anonymous emails, messages on social media. Nothing specific, just enough to make her skin crawl. You're making powerful people angry. Watch your back. This won't end well for you, Mama called, voice tight with worry. Baby, what's going on? Your aunt sent me articles. People are saying horrible things. I'm fine, Mama. Are you safe? McKenna hesitated. Yes. Don't lie to me. I'm being careful, I promise. But careful didn't stop the feeling of being watched, of looking over her shoulder in hallways, of jumping when doors opened too fast. Graham hired security, a man named Marcus who stood outside meeting rooms and walked her to the car. Is this really necessary? McKenna asked. Yes, Graham said. You're threatening billion-dollar interests. People don't like that. McKenna wanted to argue. But she didn't. Because he was right. She chose the hard road because the easy one was paved with other people's pain. If you respect that, share this. The world needs more people like her. Late one night, McKenna sat in the conference room reviewing contracts. The city glowed outside. The building was quiet. The door opened. Aiden walked in, 2 mugs in hand. Thought you could use this, he said, setting one in front of her. Tea. Not coffee, he'd remembered. Thanks, she said. He sat across from her. You okay? I'm fine. McKenna. She looked up. His eyes were serious, concerned. The threats, he said, we're taking them seriously. Marcus is good. We've increased building security. You're safe here. I'm not worried about me, she said. I'm worried about my family. If someone wants to hurt me, they'll go after them. We've got people watching your mother's house, Aiden said, quietly. Your brother's school, they're covered. McKenna's chest tightened. You didn't have to do that. Yes, we did, he said. You're risking everything for this. The least we can do is make sure you're protected. She stared at him, at the tired lines around his eyes, the weight he carried that looked heavier every day. Thank you, she whispered. He nodded, stood, paused at the door. My mother was right about you, he said. You're stronger than any of us. When he left, McKenna sat in the silence, blinking back tears she didn't have time to cry. The next day, Cole called her into his office. A contract sat on his desk, a deal with a supplier in Vietnam. Read this, he said. McKenna scanned the pages. Wages, hours, conditions. Looks fair, she said. You sure? He asked. She read it again. Slower this time. Yes, why? Because I'm not signing anything without your approval anymore, Cole said simply. Not because I have to, because I should. McKenna stared at him. This was the man who'd fired her, who'd called it procedure, who'd looked at her like a problem to solve. Now he was asking her opinion, not because the will said so, because he wanted to. Respect. That's what this was. Real respect. Sign it, she said softly. He did. Over the next weeks, the pattern continued. Small gestures, quiet respect. Aiden asking her thoughts before meetings. Cole pausing to explain financial terms she didn't know. Graham checking in daily. The board still pushed back, Richard especially, but the twins stood with her. Every time, slowly, carefully, things were changing. But change made enemies, and enemies didn't always announce themselves. One evening, McKenna returned to her room to find an envelope slipped under her door. No name, no return address. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside, a single photograph. Her brother, walking out of school, circled in red, and underneath, typed words, back off, or he pays. McKenna's blood went cold. Then came the moment that tested everything. McKenna handed the photograph to Graham. Her hands were steady, but her voice shook. They threatened my brother. Graham's face darkened. We're increasing security immediately. No, McKenna said. We're calling the police. And telling them what? That someone left an envelope? There's no name, no prints, nothing. So what do I do? McKenna asked. Back off? Let them win? Graham met her eyes. That's up to you. McKenna thought about her brother's smile, about Mama's voice on the phone, about everything she'd fought for. I'm not backing off, she said. 2 days later, the biggest test came. The boardroom was packed. A deal sat on the table. Expansion into South America. Manufacturing plants. Thousands of jobs. Billions in revenue. But the proposed wages were low, the hours long, the conditions questionable. The board was split. Half wanted it, half didn't. Aiden wanted it. We can change the conditions after we sign. Get in the door first. Fix it later. Cole didn't. If we sign with bad terms, we're no better than the people we criticized. They disagreed. Publicly. For the first time, which meant McKenna's vote would decide. The room went silent. Every eye on her. Richard leaned forward. This deal is worth $3 billion, Ms. Niroja. Think carefully. McKenna looked at the contract, at the numbers, at the wages that would barely cover rent. She thought about the photograph, the threat, the people trying to scare her into silence. She thought about Mrs. Mercer, about why she'd been chosen. No, McKenna said. Excuse me? Richard's voice rose. No, McKenna repeated. We're not signing this. Not with these terms. You're walking away from $3 billion, another board member said. I'm walking away from exploitation, McKenna replied. There's a difference. Aiden's jaw worked. He looked frustrated, conflicted. McKenna, he said carefully, if we don't take this deal, someone else will. Those jobs will still exist, just not with us. Then let someone else carry that weight, she said. We're not doing it. This is insane, Richard snapped. You're destroying this company with your naive idealism. No, Cole said, voice cutting through the noise. She's saving it. The room turned to him. My mother didn't build this company so we could profit off people's suffering, Cole continued. She built it to prove you could be successful and ethical. McKenna's vote stands. The deal is off. Silence. Richard stood, face red. This is a mistake you'll regret. He stormed out. 3 other board members followed. The rest sat in stunned silence. Graham cleared his throat. Meeting adjourned. People filed out slowly, whispering, glancing at McKenna like she'd just blown up the building. When the room emptied, only McKenna, Cole, and Aiden remained. McKenna braced for the anger, the blame. The "you just cost us billions" speech. Instead, Aiden smiled. Not a fake smile. A real one. You did the right thing, he said. McKenna blinked. You're not mad? I'm disappointed we lost the deal, Aiden admitted. But I'm proud you didn't compromise. Cole nodded. My mother knew what she was doing. McKenna's throat tightened. I just cost you $3 billion. No, Cole said. You saved us from becoming the people we said we'd never be. He stood, walked to the window, hands in his pockets. When our mother died, he said quietly, I promised I'd make this company big enough that we'd never worry about money. But somewhere along the way I forgot that the point wasn't just to be rich, it was to be good. He turned to face her. You reminded us, he said. That's worth more than any deal. McKenna didn't know what to say, so she said nothing. Aiden walked over, squeezed her shoulder gently. Get some rest. You earned it. They left. McKenna sat alone in the empty conference room, staring at the contract she'd just killed. $3 billion. Gone. Because of her. She waited for the regret to hit. For the doubt to creep in. It didn't come, because she'd made the right choice. And for the first time in her life, that was enough. That night, standing on the balcony, everything finally made sense. 6 months later, McKenna stood on the penthouse balcony watching the city glow below. Her phone buzzed. A text from Mama with a photo attached. The new house. Small, clean, safe, almost paid off. We're moving in next week, baby. Thank you. McKenna smiled, blinking back tears. Another text. Her brother. A selfie in front of his college dorm. First day tomorrow. Wish me luck, sis. She'd done it. Everything she'd come to New York for, everything she'd sacrificed for. Her family was safe, stable, breathing easier. But that wasn't the only thing that had changed. Behind her, voices rose from the living room. We can't order pizza again, Aiden said. McKenna's going to stage a revolt. You say that like she doesn't always win, Cole replied. McKenna turned, leaning against the railing, watching them through the glass. 2 men who'd once terrified her, who'd fired her, who'd made her feel invisible. Now they argued over takeout like normal people. The factory in Indonesia had new contracts, fair wages, safe conditions, workers who could afford to live. The South American deal they'd turned down, a competitor took it. Reports came out 3 months later about labor violations, lawsuits, scandals. The twins had dodged a bullet because of her. Other changes followed, slow, steady, real. Contracts rewritten, policies updated, staff treated better. Mrs. Alvarez got a raise, so did the cleaning crew. The board still pushed back sometimes. Richard had resigned. 2 others followed, but new members joined, better ones. People who believed profit and ethics could coexist. McKenna's role grew. She wasn't just breaking ties anymore. She was shaping policy, speaking at conferences, becoming a voice people listened to, not because she was powerful, because she was real. "Hey," Aiden called from the door. "We're doing Thai. You in?" McKenna smiled. "I'm in, but no extra spicy. I have to live long enough to keep you 2 in check." Aiden grinned. Cole shook his head, the ghost of a smile on his lips. As they bickered over spring rolls, McKenna looked around at the penthouse that had once felt like a museum. It still wasn't hers. Not really. But it didn't feel foreign anymore either. She thought about the girl who'd stepped off that Greyhound bus. Scared. Broke. Invisible. She thought about the woman she'd become. Still scared sometimes, still learning, but not invisible. Never invisible again. The story didn't end with romance. There were no declarations of love, no fairy tale kiss, because this wasn't that kind of story. This was a story about a woman who refused to stay silent, about 2 men who learned to listen, about a mother who saw something worth protecting and bet everything on it. This was a story about power given to the powerless and what happened when they chose to use it. McKenna walked back inside, sat with the twins at the table, ate Thai food that was too spicy but too good to care. They talked about the next factory audit, about a new supplier in Kenya, about whether they should expand into renewable energy. Normal things, important things. And somewhere between the laughter and the arguments and the planning, McKenna realized something. She was happy. Not perfect. Not without struggle. But happy. Because she wasn't just surviving anymore. She was building something, changing something, mattering. She wasn't born powerful. She was given a choice. And she chose right. If this story moved you, don't keep it to yourself. Someone out there needs to hear it. Share it. Comment. Let them know they matter too. Later that night, McKenna sat alone in her room, the city lights flickering through the window. She pulled out the velvet box, opened it. Mrs. Mercer's ring sat inside, simple and beautiful. She'd never worn it. It felt too heavy, too significant, but tonight she slipped it on her finger. It fit perfectly. She thought about Mrs. Mercer, about a woman who'd watched her in silence, seen her worth, and bet everything on it. She thought about all the people like her, the invisible ones, the ones who worked hard and stayed quiet and hoped someone, somewhere, was paying attention. She thought about what would happen if more of them were given the chance she'd been given. If more boardrooms had voices that remembered what struggle tasted like. If more companies chose people over profit. The world could change. Really change. But it required something most people weren't willing to give. Courage. McKenna stood, walked to the window, and looked out at the city that had once swallowed her whole. Now she was part of it, shaping it, fighting for it. And she wasn't done. Not even close. She thought about the pen, the signature, the choice that had changed everything. If someone handed you a pen and a chance to change the story, would you be brave enough to sign?